Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is Wednesday, the 30th of October. And last night we had Alphabet coming out with earnings after markets. In a normal session, it closed above the key resistance at 170.45. You would be aware of this if you had watched my video from the other day where I talked about Alphabet CFD and the 6 other magnificent stocks that it could close above. It was rejected first take on Monday, but Tuesday it closed above, and in the aftermarket after earnings it was well received, and it is indicated here where it closed in the aftermarket at 178.80, just a few cents below the resistance here at 179.20. If it closes about that, which is not unlikely, then there's potential much higher for Alphabet. This is the C share with the ticker name Google share. So it has resumed uptrend here, as we can see on the weekly chart. So very strong indeed, and it's going to gap higher. Then we'll move to the Far East and have a look at the Hang Seng index that is fairly weak, testing this gap area here once again. If it does close it and it closed below 19,924, well, then we could see a sell-off down to around 19,000. If it can manage to get it actually together and close above 20,953, well, then it can establish or resume its uptrend. But for now, it seems to be struggling a little bit. The S&P 500 index was a little bit positive yesterday, but in the aftermarket it should crawl a little bit higher. Didn't do it much though, so it's just trading sideways here in a little bit of a corrective move. If it takes out the lows here from the other day at 5,762, well, then we can see a push down below at 5,700, and the RSI is indicating a correction or a trend exhaustion with the divergence, so it is a bit stretched, so I don't think we'll see a new highs anytime soon. However, if it does take out the all-time highs here at 5,878.5, well, then it will be looking at 6,000 to try to reach that. The Nasdaq, on the other hand, pushed higher towards the all-time high here at 20,691. If it takes out that, well, then there is potential higher, but for now it's also a little bit stressed. There is some divergence, but for now we should respect the trend and the key support at 20,041. Dow Jones was a little bit weaker yesterday, but still above 41,831. If it closes below that level, then I think we'll see a correction down towards 41,000. But for now, it is still holding on. There's only slightly divergence there, and we're still in a positive sentiment. So if it starts moving above and takes out, I will use this candle here, this bearish candle there, as a guide at 42,595. Then we could see it's trying to claw its way higher towards 43,500. European markets were a little bit weak today. The EUROSTOXX 50 just touched the 5,000, just a few cents from actually, and then it got sent lower and could once again test the trend line here, but the key support at 49.07. We are indicating a little bit lower here this morning, and keep an eye on that 49.05 on the EURO50 CFD. DAX also a little bit weaker, and I went through all the DAX constituents yesterday, and it's only a few of them that has actually driven the market higher, like Adidas, SAP, and a few others. So if it takes out 19,330 with this little mini correction here, then we will see a larger correction down to around 19,000 possibly. There's divergence on the RSI indicating trend exhaustion, so that could occur, and the pre-market we are indicated a little bit lower, as we can see, and if it takes at that low here from the other day, well, then we could see the correction unfold. The AX Amsterdam index also indicating a little bit lower this morning, and it was more or less unchanged yesterday. If it moves back below 892 once again and takes out this low here at this little spike down here at 889, well then 878 could be tested. The CAC index, well, it tried to open higher yesterday above 7600, but it's still key support at 7464 that should be observed. And we can see it here pre-market is testing it. Probably when you're watching it, market is in full session. But here, when I recorded it, it is pre-market. So for now, it's actually dipping a little bit below the 7464 support. The Swiss market did test the 12,250 level yesterday at the key resistance, and it got sent back down. And here pre-market, it is actually fairly bad in standing, a massive bearish engulfing yesterday, and it could take it down to test the 12,000 level here once again. Euro dollar, well, still holding on above the support here around 107.77. Dipped a little bit below yesterday, but bounced. I think we will see a bounce here the next couple of days up to at least the 200 moving average and the resistance at 108.74. If it moves above that, then I think we could see it up to the 38.2 retracement at 109.34, 35 level. There's some strong resistance up there. If it takes out the lows here at 107.60, well, then we are down to around 106.65 before we find some support. That is the area over here. We have the euro sterling. Once again, it dipped below 83. I just touched it right there, as you can see, just dipped 1 or 2 cents below, 1 or 2 pips below, and still above the 83.10. It is really fighting for its life. If it can get back above this rising trend line here, then there is, as we talked about so many times, potential up to 84. If it takes out 83, I mean, and then there is no support until around 82.30. The cable, well, it is bouncing nicely, getting back above the 100 moving average, holding itself above this rising trend line there, and there is potential now up to 131. I think we will see that, excuse me, I think we will see that despite the fact that RSI is still negative sentiment and no divergence, indicating lower levels, but a correction sometimes should occur, and the 55 moving average trying to drag it a little bit higher here. I think it will be rejected up here at 131 and then sent back down. If it takes out 129, well, then we're looking at 128, where there's some support with the 200 moving average coming up, giving some support. The yen pairs and dollar yen here. Dollar yen yesterday tried once again and was very close to test the 154 resistance, but failed. We could see a little bit of a setback, but there is still potential higher, 255, 20, 155 and a half level. But it is stressed a little bit. But the 100 moving average giving it some support down here, and the 200 is currently rising. There will be some support here at 151.85. So expect a little bit of trading in this range here. If it takes out 151.85 and the rising trend line here, well, then we could see a push down to 150, 149.40. The Euro yen taking a little bit of a breather, but it is in a bullish trend. There's no divergence. RSI is positive, pointing to higher levels, and I think we could see it pushing towards 167.5, 168 resistance. Aussie yen is fairly weak compared to the others. Other yen pairs, after being rejected at 101.75, testing this falling trend line here in this triangle-like pattern. I think it will bounce, and then we could see it moving towards the 101.75 once again. We have the 200 moving average giving a little bit of support, but then we have the 100 that is kind of dragging down. So it's locked in here a bit, and I think it could actually be trading in this range here between 99.50 and 101.75 for quite some time. It needs to break out of that range for any meaningful direction. The sterling yen, on the other hand, closed above the 199.48 resistance, and I think we could see it pushing higher. There's no divergence on the RSI, as you can see, and it is still in a positive sentiment. There is potential up to 202 level, quite strong move there, I will say. Expect a little bit of a setback, but the trend is up. Aussie dollar below the 66.65 support, could dip further all the way down to around 65, maybe even 64.70. It is a bit stretched, I would say, the sell-off here, especially when it comes below the 200 moving average. Then it's kind of losing a little bit of its steam. But RSI negative, there is no divergence indicating likely lower lows, but expect a little bit of a bounce that could take it above the now resistance here at 65, 67, but I think it will be rejected. If it can get all the way up to the 66.20, then I think we'll reject it, and we are in a bearish trend that is likely to push the Aussie dollar lower. Dollar Canada, well, let's just resize this a little bit. Dollar Canada hit 200% smack on at 139.30. There's still potential up to 139.50, where there's some strong resistance in that area. We are a bit stretched here on the RSI, but there's no divergence indicating likely higher levels. After, I think we'll get a correction first. You can see here what's going on. Actually, we are looking at these levels around here up to 139.70, 140 maybe even. Very strong support, strong resistance up there. As we can also see that the weekly RSI, every time it comes up around current levels, well, then it is being hit with a correction. So expect a correction fairly soon. And what I will do, I will add a retracement, and I will remove this one, and then I will add a retracement from the last leg up here. And then we will see, okay, there's probably going to be a correction. It could either hit now, or it could hit when it reached 139.50 down to around 139, 138 and a half. But I think it will see a last leg higher. And sterling Canada, that broke out of its triangle-like pattern. It has now potential higher, and I indicated a couple of potential targets. If we just take from the peak to the lows of this corrective pattern here, well, then there's potential up to 138 projection at 183. That should be the first target. But if you also take that distance from the peak to the trough, and then add it from the breakout price, well, that is also close to the 61.8 projection of that at 183.30. So up here around that level, I would expect sterling Canada in the next few weeks. If it slides back, it could test the upper falling trend line here. It could also drop into it. That's kind of being pulled back from back down there. But to really demolish it, if it moves back below this lower rising trend line. EURSWISS, really not much to talk about. It's like repeating myself. 93.30 is key support for a break below 93. That seems to be, at the face of it, a stronger support, but I think if it takes out 93.30, then it will also take out 93. For now, it's testing this upper rising trend line here, the rising trend line in this triangle-like pattern, trying to get back in. I think it will be sent down lower here in the coming days and weeks. It's just a matter of when. The dollar Swiss once again tried to get higher here above the 786 retracement of this corrective pattern here. There's some strong resistance at 87.30, 87.50 level. We can see the 100 moving average couldn't close above, tried a couple of times now. A little bit stressed, but there is positive sentiment still on the RSI. We could see a correction down to the 85, 86 level, which is the 38.2 projection, where we had then some moving averages coming up, give a little support. So it seems it's a bit in a wait and see mode. So wait for a move outside of this range, slightly or this range trading behavior here. The dollar index looks a little bit stretched, to be honest. There is divergence on the RSI. There is a possibility we could get up to 104.85, but if it takes out 103.80, closes below, well, then expect a correction down to around 103, 102.74. Gold, new all-time highs on gold, pushing towards 2,800, getting very close to, and we have a target up here at 28.78, and I mentioned it quite a few times, but let's have a look at here, and we have to switch to a monthly chart. You can see where it comes from. It actually comes from this cup and handle like pattern we had here. We have a handle here and a cup here. I take the distance from the lows of it to the brim of the handle, the brim of the cup, and add it to the breakout price, and then we are looking at 786 projection of that. 2,878 is my target. We are very close to test the, and this is the monthly chart, the peak here on the RSI value. If it takes out that, if it closes this month, which is tomorrow, if it closes above that, then it had cancelled the RSI divergence on the monthly, and that could be big, meaning there's potential higher for gold towards 3,000. Moving on to silver. Silver is also pushing a little bit higher, but it didn't take out its peak here from the couple of weeks ago, just below 35. Got rejected here, the 786 retracement at 34.50 for 34.49. I think we'll see a little bit of a setback, which it's ongoing at the moment, but I think we'll see it pushing higher towards 35.50, and 35.50 comes from this current this peak area over here, 35.40. Actually, it spiked a little bit, but in the bigger picture, well, silver is in a bullish trend and could go higher in the coming weeks and months. On other interesting metals, we have the platinum, a little bit of a setback, but there's still potential higher. And let's switch to the weekly chart so we can see where it's actually going to. We have potential up to 1130 if we can get RSI back above 60 threshold here on the weekly. It is already in positive sentiment, indicating likely higher levels on platinum also here in coming weeks and months. We are in a bullish trend short term and medium term. And finally, palladium, also same picture here is the palladium future. However, we do have a top and reversal pattern, a bit of a doji evening top and reversal pattern. It's not the most perfect one, but still we have this shooting star-like candle here. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So we could actually see a setback down to 11.25, maybe a little bit lower, but we are in a bullish trend both on short term and medium term. So a correction, I think, would be fairly short-lived. And finally, copper. Copper is still in this sideways range trading behavior there. I will add a horizontal line so we see, okay, if it can break out and above 445.70, then I think we'll see a push towards 464.70 level. And again, 429.35, then we're looking at 420. On the oil market, been fairly quiet overnight, a little bit of a bounce here, but we are in a bearish trend on WTI and Brent Crude oil, and you can see here what's actually going on the weekly chart. We are in a bearish trend, finding some support around these dips here. There's still potential down to 64, maybe even 61.80 here on WTI. It is in a bearish trend, and it will take really some massive bounce to demolish that. It really needs to get back above $72 on the WTI, and Brent crude oil, same picture really. You can see lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and we could get a new lower low below 69.90 and down to around 64.60 level. And very quickly on the Henry Hub, natural gas pushed higher, a little bit higher yesterday. It is still forming this triangle-like pattern here on the weekly. If it breaks out of it, bullish, and it takes out the peak there from a few weeks back, well, then there's potential up to 364, maybe even higher. Moving on to the US 10-year Treasury yields. And it spiked above its resistance here at 429 yesterday, spiked up to 433 and a bit, and then closed back down. So I think we'll see a correction that could take it down to possibly all the way down to around 414. But there will be some support here at 417 around that level, but we could see it dipping down to that. But here's the weekly chart, and this is what is really interesting. It is trading this falling trend line or wedge-like pattern here, spiked a little bit higher, and I think we could see it test the upper falling trend line fairly soon. If it does break above, well, then we have broken the channel, and if we get the RSI on the weekly chart above 60 threshold, well, then we are certainly looking at previous peaks here, but that's for later. But still, just to give you an idea of why we are operating in with the US 10-year Treasury yields, there is a slight divergence, I think, here on the RSI, indicating a correction. But as we can also see, 55 moving average coming up, 100 very close to turning around, 200 already turned around. So the underlying bullish trend is fairly strong. The 2-year, well, also spiked a little bit higher yesterday, but I think we'll also see a little bit of correction here. And if we add Fibonacci retracement to that, say, okay, the last leg up here, or the latest leg up, well, what can that take us to? Well, probably a correction down to 406, possibly 399, around 4% before bouncing. There's no divergence on the RSI, indicating likely higher levels on the US 10-year, 2-year, sorry. The EuroBund future. The EuroBund future still holding on and closed once again above the 132.73. Extremely volatile here the past few days. Really a battle going on. Will it move back higher, or will it resume downtrend? I think it will resume downtrend. We have the 55 moving average pointing to lower levels. We have the still holding on of the 200 moving average, which is key. And we can see here on the weekly what's actually going on. It is below the 100 weekly moving average, the 55 giving some support, but it looks quite heavy. All right, that's all for today. Talk to you again tomorrow. Have a nice day.